everyone. Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We talk about Kaleb Johnson, the Steelers' third-round pick, why he's a fit specifically for Arthur Smith's system, and why I'd compare him more to Le'Veon Bell than Najee Harris as far as the style of running back he'd be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's going on with Shedeur Sanders, what's going on with the quarterback position, and my top players left heading into day 3, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Excuse me as I sip on coffee. I'm recording this very late in the evening. All right, Steelers fans, let's talk about Kaleb Johnson, Steelers pick here, running back out of Iowa. I thought this was a good pick on my big board. I believe I ranked him just outside of the top 50. They didn't pick him at 83. That's pretty doggone good value to get him there. I thought he'd be gone by this point of the draft. He was part of that Dylan Sampson. I ranked him 54th on my big board. I had Dylan Sampson just ahead of him on my big board at 53. And I was wondering if they'd want Kaleb Johnson because he was not one of the faster backs at the combine. He ran 4.56 in the 40-yard dash, but there's no denying that he's a power runner, that he has the ability to do that. But he also, I think, even more than being a power runner per se, is the fact that he is a really good productive back in the zone run game for Iowa's offense. Now, why is he a fit? I'd say it's because he's comparable more so to, if you're comparing the Steelers running backs, like I said before, Le'Veon Bell more than Najee Harris. Now, what does that mean? And why does that matter? Well, for one, it's important to understand the styles of runs the Steelers were trying to use in Arthur Smith's offense this past season. The Steelers used zone runs 75% of the time when they ran the ball last year. That's the 6th highest rate of zone runs in the NFL, according to Sports Information Systems. It's a staple of the Arthur Smith's offense. Johnson, for Iowa, thrived in zone runs, and that was like his home base, in particular outside zone runs were his forte, and it was something that he looked very comfortable in. His vision was able to piece up what he needed to do, and we'll get into why that relates to Le'Veon Bell. Harris was okay in the zone. We'll go over some of the numbers that he had, but he wasn't great in it. Le'Veon Bell, though, was awesome in the zone, and that was what made him so dangerous with the Steelers. So let's look at some of the numbers here to compare numbers that we're talking about. Like last year, Najee Harris, out of his rushes, 127 of his runs were zone runs, which, if you don't know the difference, there's primarily, if you're talking about the difference of styles of run games, there's gap runs and there's zone runs. Gap runs are when a running back is designated, you are hitting between the right guard and the right tackle, and we're designing you for hit at this time, and that's where you're supposed to go. That's how the play is designed. Hit that hard. And that's what Najee Harris was really good at Alabama, because their offensive line just dominated people. You could do that a lot more often. Now, zone runs are more so when it's like, hey, we're sending you in a certain direction, but we are planning for our linemen to kind of engage based off of the space that's around them, and to them to just basically win collectively as a unit. And then we're going to give you the option to be able to kind of pick which hole you want to attack. And that was something that Le'Veon Bell just destroyed defenses with, because he would get to the line of scrimmage, because the Steelers had a good offensive line. He'd have space and time to figure out, okay, holes there, bang, I'm going to go there. And his feet were insanely quick. That's what made him so dangerous. Now, Najee Harris's numbers in the zone. He ran 127 times on zone runs last year for the Steelers offense. He gained about 506 yards. That's an average of about 4 yards per carry. Not bad. It's a solid average that's right around there. Now, Sports Information System charts Harris to also have forced a broken or missed tackle in about 11% of the times that he ran the ball on zone runs. That was the 10th best rate in the NFL of players who ran at least 100 times in zone schemes last season. But let's compare that to how Le'Veon Bell did in the last year. I think he was like really elite for the Steelers. That was 2016. He was good in 2017, but I felt when he was just a dominant force was 2016, and he ran in the zone a lot. In fact, he ran in the zone 195 times, according to Sports Information Systems, in 2016 for the Steelers for 926 yards. What was that average? Not four. That was 4.7 yards per carry compared to Najee Harris's 4.0. Significant difference. Also, he forced missed and broken tackles about 11.8% of the time, a little bit better than Najee Harris there as well. So, how does that relate to Kaleb Johnson, the pick that we're here to talk about? Kaleb Johnson last year rushed 151 times in the zone offense, or in zone runs for Iowa's offense for 731 yards, an average of 4.8 yards per carry, very close to Le'Veon Bell's 4.7. Very, different from Najee Harris's 4.0. He also forced missed tackles, at 17.9% of the time that he got the ball on a zone run play. I think that the thing here is that when you look at the way that Kaleb Johnson uses the zone runs, he just looked a lot more at home with what he wanted to do there. A lot of his best runs, when I would watch him piece defenses up, he would understand what his offensive line was doing. And the Le'Veon Bell-like quality is that he wouldn't just make a move to beat the guy in front of him. He would make a move to beat the guy to set up the next guy so that he can make two moves and then get to the second level and be able to turn a solid gain into a really big gain. And that was something that Najee Harris didn't necessarily do all the time. Najee Harris often just ran through your face, and that'd be fine if the Steelers' offensive line was more dominant, because then running through your face happens 5 or 6 or 7 yards downfield, and then you wear teams down. The Steelers never became that team with Najee Harris because the offensive line just never got to be that good enough. Kaleb Johnson is potentially coming into a better offensive line situation than the Steelers have had for Najee Harris in the past 4 years, as these guys are going to be a little bit older, more mature, more composed, and more coalesced as they gather more experience together. But let's also look at the size comparisons if we're looking at the two of these guys. Because it may kind of make sense for Kaleb Johnson to be there. If we look at Kaleb Johnson and Najee Harris, they have the same exact height at 6'1" flat. Najee Harris came in about six pounds heavier into the NFL draft back when he was drafted in 2021. Kaleb Johnson, Najee didn't do any combine events. Kaleb Johnson's 4.57. 40-yard dash, pretty solid there. And then, but you look at like the hand size, Najee Harris is slightly bigger hands, slightly longer arms. So there's that. But look at it, how it compares also to Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, about 6'1" and about 3/8, so just slightly tad taller than Kaleb Johnson. Also 6 pounds heavier. But what was Le'Veon Bell's 40-yard dash when he did it in 2013? Of 4.6, just slightly slower than Kaleb Johnson's 4.7. And you look at the hand size, identical arm length. Kaleb Johnson just a little bit longer than Le'Veon Bell there. Bottom line is the Steelers got a hard-running physical back who shows good anticipation and vision in zone schemes at the college level, who looks like he could be a really good fit for Arthur Smith's offense and the run game that the Steelers want to be the main feature of the Steelers offense until they find their franchise quarterback. Jaylen Warren is still going to be the starter. Make no mistake. He should be. He's earned it, and he will be. But Kaleb Johnson will be a welcome change of pace from Jaylen Warren, where he's going to take over the Najee Harris role just as the second back instead of the first back. And it'll allow them to split carries, keep each other fresh. And I think that'll be a relationship the Steelers will look forward to having there. And it will be an interesting running back duo situation to work with. Again, this year will most likely come down to, as an offense, whether or not the Steelers' offense will be good. It will most likely come down to how good is this offensive line in the first place. If they come together and take real steps forward, I can see the run game thriving, quarterbacks being protected more, and the entire offense feeding off of that and being a better unit. And now, if you have a duo of running backs ready to go all throughout the year, who can be productive in different ways, the potential is there for the run game to take a serious step up. And Kaleb Johnson, again, being a guy who's used to running the outside zones, like for example, the way that he can bounce laterally to attack the outside zone opportunities. it's something that Najee Harris didn't even at the college level wasn't as proficient at, and that's something that I think the Steelers could be really good at here. For me, it just makes sense with what the Steelers want to be. They want to be a physical team. They want to be a team that can run the ball on you, that can grind you down with it. And now you give Jaylen Warren a guy a chance for them to be a lightning and thunder package where Jaylen Warren more explosive, more fast, more has that home run speed. Kaleb Johnson not the home run speed, but has the burst and has the ability to hit the holes hard and to create some big runs with the zone schemes that the Steelers are looking to be set up. And to the Steelers' credit, they're not paying Kaleb Johnson $6.7 million a year as they would have had to with the fifth-year extension of Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin on Thursday, when talking about Derek Harmon, said that Derek Harmon has Steelers DNA. I think that Kaleb Johnson could kind of fit the same vein there. I think this is a very Steelers-like pick for what the Steelers have wanted at running back for quite some time, and that's why it is I think a good pick for the Steelers. Again, when I look at my big board, my top 100, I'm going to show you guys here. I had him just at 54th here. He was a pre-draft visitor for the Steelers, so that was a big one for them. They had their eyes on him, and so they got their guy, and I think this is a win. Now, could they have gone with another explosive back, another speed back? Sure. But I think that they feel like they have two of those guys already because Jaylen Warren is that, and they got Kenneth Gainwell. So now you have two guys like that, and you have a running back in Kaleb Johnson that can be a bigger guy that can take on that load and can also grow into being maybe your feature back in some time. So I think it's a good pick. I think it was a good fit there. But of course, there are a lot of people who are wondering, wait a second, there was Shedeur Sanders yet again. Why aren't you drafting him when you still need a quarterback? Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed. Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are your only quarterbacks. Let's talk about that. We'll do that next year on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you this show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write your job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's keep this show going. And I know there's a lot of people. It's so funny seeing the divisions on social media as I'm doing. We did another live stream show for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks to, I think we had over at least 20,000 people on that show at the same time. It's really appreciated that y'all showed up on the live stream doing that for the Post-Gazette. By the way, also broke the Kaleb Johnson signing, drafting as well, just like I broke the Derek Harmon one. So shout out to your boy for pulling that off. But let's talk about what the Steelers didn't do, and that was they didn't go get Shedeur Sanders, and they didn't go get any quarterback in the third round, which I was skeptical that they would. Though I did say, and I did feel like, hey, third round Shedeur Sanders, that's the value where I think he is. Clearly, the Steelers are like, not just yet, and clearly the rest of the NFL was like, not just yet. So let's talk about this quarterback situation. We're going to look at not just the Steelers, but the NFL as a whole. Right now, there's been 5 quarterbacks taken. Cam Ward, we knew was going first overall. Jackson Dart was kind of surprised he went second. Jalen Milroe went to the Seahawks. Tyler Shuck to the Saints. And Dillon Gabriel to the Browns. I got to admit, that was the weird one. I understood. I get Dart because people had a first-round grade on him. I didn't. I don't think he's that good. Milroe, I get because of the athleticism. He has the arm strength. He has the speed. He can run through you. And when he locks in and he dials up the right pass, his velocity can be there, and he can throw some awesome balls. He's just wildly inconsistent. You have to coach him up. He's a project. I get I get the upsides of Jalen Milroe and why you take that. Tyler Shuck, the ability that he has to kind of play at the NFL level and the college levels. I understand taking the shot there. He also has a 4.6 40-yard dash. The speed's there. I understood that. Dylan Gabriel, I do not understand. I did not have. I had him far way out of any of these quarterback conversations. Like people, like I think I even answered a question on the show when we did our call-ins, and I was like, I don't know why anyone would do Dylan Gabriel. I don't see it translating well. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm just not scouting the right way. But I did not see Dylan Gabriel as a real option there. But hey, the Browns did, and so that's 5 quarterbacks off the board. And Shedeur Sanders in sitting there. And most of the sports world is wondering, why is Shedeur Sanders still in this position? Why is he still waiting to hear his name called? Well, before we go any further into this, I hope the people that yelled me down for weeks and also yelled the Steelers down on Thursday night because I said Shedeur Sanders wasn't a first-round pick and the Steelers didn't pick him in the first round. I hope that they're coming to the realization that he wasn't a first-round prospect because the entire NFL doesn't even see him as a third-round prospect, and he's now sitting waiting to be picked up in the 4th round. Now, again, I don't hate Shedeur Sanders because that's what people say. You just hate Shedeur Sanders. I don't. I think I actually liked him. I root for him in college. I wanted to see him do well. I think he has upside, just not the upside of a franchise quarterback. That requires a lot more boxes to be checked when it comes to his prospect profile. When I look at it, guys, when I look at quarterbacks, I look for several different things. The things that he has is he has NFL accuracy. He has the moxie of a starting quarterback, but he doesn't have that elite NFL size. The size is just okay. He doesn't have elite NFL speed, or it isn't even really good NFL speed. His speed is actually kind of the other thing that holds him back, and he doesn't have like that booming arm strength, that put the zip on the ball arm strength. He can throw a deep ball, but he's got to put air under it, and it requires that accuracy to be elite. And it is elite at times. And other times, I'd say his accuracy is the best thing that he has going for him. But you need more than that at the NFL level, and you need more elements to your game that will translate well to the NFL. And I just don't think he has those. And I think you can still take a gamble on it, but it's a tougher gamble when you don't check more of those boxes. And that's my pure reason for why I said he shouldn't be a first-round pick. Now, again, if the Steelers had chosen him in the 3rd round, on its face, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense. But I really like Kaleb Johnson. I think he's a heck of a running back. I think this is a guy that's going to play next year and be ready to go and that's going to get a lot of snaps. If Shedeur Sanders gets drafted in the 3rd round or anywhere, really, I don't think he plays a lot of snaps. I think that it's going to be Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers that leads the Steelers there in the offense, and that he's going to learn and come behind things. And I know there's some people out there that, again, they feel that Shedeur Sanders is the guy, and he's the franchise guy, and he's going to save everything. I don't think he's that guy. And clearly, the Steelers don't either. But again, it's about the upside and what you want them to develop. For example, Jalen Milroe goes before Shedeur Sanders here. Milroe doesn't have Sanders' accuracy, his moxie, nor did I think that Milroe had the command of his offense at Alabama that Shedeur Sanders had of his offense in Colorado, because also, it was kind of his offense at Jackson State with Deion Sanders and everything. But Milroe doesn't have those things, but you know what Milroe does have? He has that arm strength and that speed that people are just like, man, if I can make that work, if I can put that thing together, if I can just if I can coach him up to put those things together, I can make him a really dangerous quarterback. And that's what people see. And that's what coaches and coaching staff are going to say, hey, I can work through that. NFL coaches, I see that challenge and I want to bring that out of him. And that's fine. But with the limitations that Sanders has in his game, it's less about coaching him up. It's going to be more so about like, hey, just getting him to play his style. It's what we said. He's a floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser, because he has those elements where I think Shedeur Sanders will do a lot of the basics and the fundamentals well, but he won't do them in such an amazing way that makes your offense all that much better. And that's where I think that the Steelers and most of the teams see him as a guy that they're not going to jump out for and draft with a higher pick. It's not that he can't. It's not that he can't. It's not that he can't play at the NFL at all. It's just that these traits that you're looking at here, the things that Jalen Milroe can do if he puts it all together, Sanders don't have that. He's going to have to win with a lot of other means that are going to be different factors here. It's why, again, Nick Faribault was on the show saying he's a floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser. That's not you hate Shedeur Sanders. It's just why teams have been passing on him. Now, on my big board, I think that I had him as the 44th best player. So I had him ranked even higher than Kaleb Johnson in that situation. But I get, if you're the Steelers, maybe they had Kaleb Johnson ranked that much higher than on them. So again, I thought it would have been fine to take Shedeur Sanders at 83 overall. But I also thought Johnson would be gone also as well before 83. So kind of both of them fit into the same category. And while I don't know where Sanders will go, we'll go in his 4th round, 5th round, whenever he does get drafted, because honestly, I legit thought he was going to be a 1st round pick. I thought he was going to be picked before the Steelers. And then when he got to the Steelers, I was like, they're probably going to pass on him. But I thought he'd get picked up by the Rams. I thought when the Giants traded up, I was sure that they were going to take him there. I thought the Raiders were going to take him. I thought the Browns were going to take him. None of these teams that make a lot of sense for Shedeur Sanders have been taking him, and that is a bizarre situation. I have to say, him falling to the 4th round, that caught me off guard. Him falling out the 1st, not at all. That I totally understood. Not again the profile there, the boxes he doesn't check as far as a prospect and the natural gifts that he brings to the table. All that I understood. But the 4th round, I was like, oh, okay, especially when Dylan Gabriel gets picked by the Browns to join that quarterback room. But again, I think this kind of goes back to it. If we're just talking specifically about the Steelers, when I was telling y'all that the Shedeur Sanders, Mike Tomlin talking the hype, it was a smokescreen. And even after last night, or 2 nights ago now, Thursday night, when the Steelers just didn't take him, some people were like, well, maybe it wasn't a smokescreen. Maybe they just like him. They just like him in the 3rd round. That's where they're going to take him. Clearly, it's not that, because they didn't take him in the 1st or the 3rd round. And maybe they like him just as a day 3 quarterback, and that's not liking him enough, in my opinion, to prove that there wasn't a smokescreen put up there where not just the Tomlin comments, but whenever you see Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or those types of guys put out the Steelers are really interested in this guy, that's the team often trying to drum up interest and try to put out the narrative out there so that teams think that they're interested in one player when they're really not, and they're interested elsewhere, so that the other teams can't stay on their scent as far as what the Steelers are actually trying to do. So even if he wasn't taken in the 1st round, some thought that the Steelers might trade back up to get him. They didn't do that. They didn't even take him naturally with their 3rd round pick. I still think that the Steelers, might consider him in the 4th round, because the 4th round, when I did all my mocks, if you remember most of my mock drafts, I often took the quarterback in the 4th round. It was often Will Howard or Quinn Ewers or one of those types of guys that was just sitting there. Or that's often where I got Tyler Shuck in those. But Tyler Shuck was a 2nd round pick this year. That's pretty crazy. But I think, again, like that's the sweet spot. And so if he's sitting there at 123, that's where I think the Steelers might say, all right, now we'll take the swing on the quarterback, because that's where we were looking to add the backup quarterback at that spot. But again, like, the Steelers, they love to fake people out, because it's part of their job to keep other teams and us in the media off their trail. Because if we're on their trail, it means another team's on their trail. If another team's on their trail, they're able to plan around what you're planning. When they're planning around what you're planning, oftentimes they will snipe out the players that you want to get before you can get to them. And then you're the one saying, like, dang, we missed out on our guy this year because such and such team knew what we were doing, and they planned around it. That's all part of the strategy with the smoke screens and the keeping us at bay in the media as far as what's going to happen. Now, again, local media knew what was going on. Pretty much everybody that I had on the show, from Nick Faribault to Alan Saunders to Mike DeFabo, Jenna Hart, we were all like, nah, it's DT. I don't care what nobody says about Q quarterback. It's DT in the 1st round all the way. Bing, bang, boom. It was. And again, I think it's not that they don't want a quarterback, but it's about finding the guy that they think will be the guy, not a guy at quarterback, the guy at quarterback, especially if you're going to draft him in the 1st round. Now, I think that if they thought that Shedeur Sanders was the guy, they would have drafted him already. And that's why that's why he's still sitting there, because they don't see him as that guy. Again, I don't put it past them that if they draft him in the 4th round, I think it would be fine there, because again, like, you're not drafting him to be the guy. You're not drafting him to be a good backup quarterback, and that's a fine fit there. but there's plenty of other prospects available that are available right now, and I want to go over my top guys heading into the 4th round and where the Steelers might be looking at taking other players there if they don't take Shedeur Sanders. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA playoffs are here. FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you can place a $5 bet and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, you can score from 3-pointers to steals to assists because FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today when you make your first bet of $5 or more. That's on FanDuel.com to bet $5 or more on your first bet and get $250 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here today. Let's go over here where we're at as far as a top 10 players that I have left heading into day 3 of the draft. Because as you guys know, I had my top 100 picks that I put out there, heading into the draft. It's the way I kind of just set up a board so that you guys can see where I have people ranked across different picks. So what I do throughout the draft is I try to keep track of who gets picked and then be able to say, like, okay, who are my top 5 left? So like throughout the draft when I'm covering it live and I'm tweeting, I'm like, hey, as the Steelers pick is coming up, these are my top 5 players available on my big board. And my big board, whenever I put it out there like that, is specifically looking at players that I think will be of interest to the Steelers. So like edge rushers, they haven't been on the list. Tight ends, they haven't been on the list. Tackles weren't on the list early. I will put them on the list now, though, because day 3 tackles, I think, make a lot of sense for the Steelers trying to get guys. So let's look at some of the players that I have ranked in my top 10 as far as still available. Now, some of these guys probably won't be available by the time the Steelers pick at 123 overall, as I think we're at 103. So it's 20 picks that the Steelers are going to have to wait through to get to their pick here. But here's my top 10 if you're looking on YouTube. I'll walk through these picks for our audio listeners who can't see on YouTube right now. My number 1 pick available right now is Elike Yamanar, the wide receiver out of Stanford. I love his physical presence. I love his ability to win with his size and his frame. I think he'd be an interesting addition to the offense if they wanted another guy like that. Granted, I think with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, they got that kind of receiver locked down. Still, interesting pick there. He's my number 1. He's my top ranked player on my big board that's still available. But my number 2 is Shedeur Sanders, which again, if he's sitting there at 123, it'd be tough for me to pass on him there. I was all for passing him on the 1st round. I understand passing him on the 3rd round. 4th round, unless there's a prospect that you think is just really that much of a sleeper candidate, I think that this is the sweet spot to get him, unless who knows, if Shedeur Sanders falls to the 5th round, and I'm saying this again, just about an hour later when the Steelers pick again in the 5th round, then that's a different story. But again, Shedeur Sanders, my number 2 prospect available right now as far as guys left for my top 100 big board. After Shedeur Sanders, wide receiver Jalen Royals, shifty target. Kyle Williams is off the board, so if you're looking for separator guys, he's one of those guys. I still think Konate Mumfield will be a good guy to have in this conversation. I don't have him coming up just yet in my top 10. I didn't put him in my top 100. Honestly, though, he was just outside of it because I think that he can be that good of a wide receiver. But for now, Jalen Royals is in that conversation. My number 4 prospect left right now, Marcus Mbao, a huge offensive tackle prospect who I thought could be a really good option to be the future backup the current backup tackle that you could put behind Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, have him on a rookie contract for the next 4 years, and then that way, if one of those guys goes down, you have a young guy that you've been developing that you could throw in there, and you can hope that you've developed into a physical force and give yourself that flexibility. But then after that is when we start the run of defensive tackle, because as I've said, it would not shock me in this draft if the Steelers double dipped at defensive tackle in this class. My top defensive tackle left right now, C.J. West. He's one of those guys. He's physical. He's a bit shorter at 6'3", but he is physical. He is aggressive, and he is a pure nose tackle. And if you're a person who says, like, I don't believe in nose tackles in the first round, fourth round, that's where you do start to believe in nose tackles, because he may be a 2-down guy, but he can be a 2-down guy if you get him in the fourth round. He could be that answer in the middle part of the defense to help stuff the run. I see him fitting there. Right after C.J. West, though, I have Aeneas Peebles. Now, if you've been following my coverage, I've liked Aeneas Peebles for a hot minute. He comes out of the ACC where I covered the Pitt Panthers. I watched him at Virginia Tech just dominate people, and then I also saw him at the Senior Bowl just being aggressive as a pass rusher. I think that he would be a good rotational pass rusher, whereas C.J. West would probably be a rotational run stuffer, and Aeneas Peebles a rotational pass rusher. So that's where I see him there. Miami receiver Xavier Restrepo, a smaller receiver who can get open. He's my number 7 guy on my top 10 available. Another wide receiver there. Then 2 more defensive tackles. Josh Farmer, another nose type of defensive tackle who's better against the runs. Similarly, after him, Jordan Phillips, similar to Farmer, a run stuffer who needs to work more as a pass rusher to get there. And then finally, I fill it out with my last player. I think this actually might be literally the lowest player ranked in my top 100 because so many of them have been picked up by now. But that would be safety Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State. Just another option to add to the secondary to give you some flexibility back there. And that's a lot of players, but it provides that kind of clearer picture that you're looking at as far as what the Steelers might be targeting, who they might be looking at, what positions that they still have their eyes on. So I really think DT is still a big option for them to double up on to continue to build the depth at that position. Wide receiver still on my list, despite them keeping George Pickens. Also, with George Pickens surviving day 2 of the draft, that means, like I said for a while, he was not getting traded early on. Early in the draft process or early in the offseason process, I was like, hey, I'm looking to see if it's possible. But after a few weeks, I was like, that door is closed. And sure enough, when he didn't go in the second round, they wasn't going nowhere. It was not something that they're willing to do. I think it shows that this team has a little bit more faith in George Pickens than maybe some people will give him credit for. So there's that as well. Bottom line, there's still plenty of directions the Steelers could go right now, and it'll be exciting on day 3. So we will keep you covered here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm not going to be doing a live stream for the day 3 of the draft. I'll be actually at the Steelers facility covering things for the Post Gazette. So stay tuned on my social media accounts, especially on my Twitter. That's where I usually post stuff fast at Carter Critiques. If you want to check that out there, but at Carter Critiques also works for all my social media handles, whether it's TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the media handles. Same thing every time. At Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, and now sometimes Saturday when there's a bonus episode needed, like this day 2 of the draft recap here on what the Steelers did. We're back tomorrow. I'll have back tomorrow as well, or maybe it's not tomorrow, later today as well, when we get to recap what happened on day 3 of the draft and how we can finally look at the full draft class that the Steelers have put together right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you then.